So keep the roll call coming, and we're gonna go ahead and get started. We know that more folks are going to be joining us. We're going to do a little bit of preparation for today's session and go ahead and get us moving. So if you can hear me and see me well, go ahead and give me a yes in the chat. If you can hear me and see me well, go ahead and give me a yes in the chat. I see the hands raised. Awesome. All right, perfect. So I love it. Keep the interaction going for me. I appreciate it. And I am going to give you the same energy back. I want to welcome you to today's session on Mindfulness and Meditation 101. So if you're here for Meditation and Mindfulness 101, you are at the right place at the right time with the right person. And I'm excited to be with you today. As we get started, I want to share a few things with you about where we are and just to acknowledge what's happening in the world. And then we'll go ahead and get moving. And so, all right, so Elise is having an issue with seeing the slides. So if you can see the slides, give me a yes into the chat. And if someone from the digital conventions team could maybe connect with Elise to assist her, and we'll go ahead and get moving. So it looks like folks can, for the most part, see the slides and hear us as well. All right, awesome. So I want to share a few things with you as we get started, and then we'll get moving here. So as public health professionals, as healthcare workers, as community members, I know that our goal is to really work hard to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to experience lifelong wellness and wholeness, and to experience that free from stigma. But the chances are that for many of us on the quest to make this vision a reality, that you have too many things on your plate. You probably feel like you're constantly putting out fires, and it seems like you just never have enough time and resources to get everything done. And I know that with the pandemic, that has thrown a curveball and has probably made things even more challenging for us this year. And so this means that for many of us, we're spending more of our time online. We're spending more of our time juggling our rearranged personal priorities and obligations, and we're finding it challenging to continue to do the work that we're doing, to serve the folks that we're doing, even in the midst of all the chaos that we're experiencing. But what I want you to know as we move forward, and particularly as we talk about today's topic, is that no matter what's going on in your life right now, no matter what is going on at work, I want you to know that your purpose hasn't changed. I believe, as a matter of fact, that we're all called to use our time and our talent and our resources in ways that serves others. And in times of crisis and transition like this, we are called to step more fully into that. The need for the work that we're doing has never been greater. And we need you, we need all of you, and we need your best to be able to serve all of those who are in need right now. And so we recognize that we might need to pivot. We might need to take a detour, but certainly now is not the time to give up hope or to throw in the towel. So I want us to be flexible. I want us to change our plans if we need to, but I want us to stay on purpose, recognizing that while our how we achieve our purpose may have changed, our why remains the same. Now, I also recognize that the anxiety, the fear, the doubt, all of those things are a natural part of the human experience in terms of those thoughts, those emotions, those feelings that we might have that might come up for us. But I want you to know that despite those things, we have an opportunity to acknowledge them, to not ignore them or pretend that they don't exist. We can acknowledge them, but we also have the opportunity in the face of those things, when the doubts and the anxieties and all those things arise, we get to choose to focus on the solutions. We get to choose to focus on the opportunities to move forward. We get to choose how to learn, how to evolve, and to move forward from that. And so it's in that spirit that I am sharing today's topic around mindfulness and using that, particularly in the form of meditation, as a tool to help us to find a little bit of calm, find a little bit of peace in the midst of seeming chaos, and to be able to stay the course and to stay on track, even in so-called ordinary times or extraordinary times. So with that being said, let me tell you a little bit about what we're going to be doing today. We're going to talk a little bit about mindfulness and meditation, just to give a little bit of an overview of what we're talking about. And we're actually going to do a practice. So the best way for us to experience this is to actually practice it. So I'm not going to do a lot of talking. We're going to do we're going to practice it together. We're going to sit, experience it, whether it's your first time or it's your 500th time, or you're a lifelong practitioner. We're going to be doing this together. That's the beauty of bringing community to get together in the way that we've been able to do that today. And then we'll have a Q&A, and then we'll do a bit of a wrap up. So a little bit about me. So I am Meico Whitlock. I am a speaker, a trainer, and coach. I work with change makers just like you all over the world to help you to do great work better by creating lasting balance in your life. I work with folks in the area specifically of getting clear about life planning challenges, getting clear about work-life balance, and getting clear about tech life balance so that you can do your great work better. And I come to this work as a recovering workaholic. I come to this work as someone who has worked most of my professional career in the government and nonprofit sector. And most recently, I worked in public health communications focused on HIV and hepatitis here in the DC area. So I understand all too well the challenges that many of you might be facing right now. I understand all too well the need that is out there. And I understand all too well the importance for us to be at our best so that we can give our best to the folks who actually need us now more than ever. I know that there's a lot of talk in the world about what's happening with COVID-19, but we know that there are lots of other conditions that are having a negative impact on the wellness of folks all around the world. And that's why we're here, because we're dedicated to making a difference in those areas. So that is the vein in which I come to you. If you want to stay connected, my information is here on the screen, and we'll make sure that you have that after today's session. If you want to join the email list to stay connected, you can text all this one word, live on purpose, to the numbers 345-345, and that will help you to get added to the list. And also you have my information to follow me on social media as well as email. And something else that I want to share with you as well is that I recognize that your time is precious and that you have chosen to spend this time with me. I cherished it, and I'm deeply grateful for that. And so as a token of my appreciation from my heart to yours, I want to offer you my free workbook, which talks about and walks you through the process of starting the process of implementing the practices that we're going to be talking about today in terms of mindfulness, into actually finding balance in a practical way in your work, in your life, and in your relationship with technology. So if that is something that interests you, you can go to mindfultechie.com/free. You can get this workbook. And again, this is a token of my appreciation for you being here today, for showing up for yourself, and for showing up for the community, for being a part of this. And if you are looking to move beyond just getting started, if you need something that's a bit of a deeper dive, I also want to offer you the Intention Planner, which is a tool that I created specifically for change makers to help you to actually put into practice and sustain with a simple accountability system over time the balance in your life as it concerns work life and tech life. So if you are interested in that, you can check out the link mindfultechie.com/planner. If you're looking to get started, get the workbook. If you want to move beyond getting started but sustain it, check out the planner. And that's something that you can have for yourself. So awesome. And I see people saying thank you for that. You're very welcome. And we'll make sure you get this information. And if someone wants to put the links in the chat, that would be appreciated as well, so folks can have those. And then we'll come back to this a little bit later on so that folks have access to it. So with that being said, let's go ahead and do a bit of a warm-up exercise called the lion's breath, and then we'll go ahead and get moving here. So with that being said, I'm going to invite folks to wherever you are, however you are, if you're in a safe, comfortable environment, I invite you in this moment to take a moment to just take an upright and comfortable seated position, if that is possible for you in this moment. You might also choose to stand, or if you're lying down, that's perfectly fine too. But if you're seated, just take an upright and comfortable seated position that just feels right, that just feels good to the body, and just ensure that your feet are firmly planted on the ground beneath you. And you might choose to close your eyes if that feels comfortable for you. And to just take a moment to allow the body to settle, perhaps placing the hands palm up or palm down just above the knees. And just take a moment to allow the body to settle. And in the next few moments, I'll be guiding us through the process of doing the lion's breath, which is a deep exhalation of the breath out of the lungs as fully and deeply as we can with an audible ah sound. And we'll be breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. So we'll be doing 3 of those. And let's start with the first breath here, breathing in fully and deeply as you're able to, in through the nose and out through the mouth. And in again, let's take the second breath in through the nose, fully and deeply. And out through the mouth. And in one final time, in through the nose, fully and deeply. And out through the mouth. Allow the body to settle. If you chose to close your eyes, I invite you to open your eyes when you're ready. And of course, if you feel moved to take a few more breaths on your own, that is perfectly okay. Do what is right for you. Do what is right for your body in this moment. So now that we have done our warm up, I think we're ready to get started. So if you're ready to get started, let me know in the chat that you're ready, and then we'll go ahead and get started. If you're ready to get started, let me know in the chat and we'll go ahead and get ready. Awesome. I see the folks letting me know. So thank you all. Keep those coming. I love the energy that you all have here. So let's talk a little bit about the challenge that we are dealing with as we are in terms of what brings us together, right? And so what's the challenge and how does this connect to the fact that we have this tool that's available to us, mindfulness and meditation, to help us to do that? So thank you all for letting me know that you're ready. I see you in the chat. I acknowledge you and I thank you for that. So let's start by taking a poll. So momentarily, you're going to see a poll on your screen that is really going to help us to assess where we are collectively in terms of our stress levels. So the poll is out there. And I want to ask you, how is your stress level now compared to before the pandemic? How is your stress level now compared to before the pandemic, right? So has it decreased? Is it the same as before? Has it increased? Let me know about your stress level as it compares to the before the pandemic. Again, has it decreased? Is it the same as before? Or has it increased? And you can let me know by completing the poll that's out there. Okay, so it looks like we have most folks who have responded to this poll. We're gonna end the poll and we're gonna share the results out. So it looks like for the vast majority of folks, about 69% of folks indicate that their stress levels have actually increased. For many of us, it stayed the same. And if we're doing change making work, we know that that is inherently stress making and stressful work. And for a few of us, we've actually had a decrease. And so maybe we can learn something from the 5 of you who've indicated that you've had an actual decrease in stress levels. But this is one of the challenges that we are dealing with, right? We are dealing with the fact that we have an increase in our stress levels as a result of what is happening in our world and how things have really shifted for us in 2020. Part of that is connected to what's happening with the COVID-19 and the pandemic that we're focusing so much time and energy on addressing, right? And many of us have went through a roller coaster. Maybe you can relate to this, that we have gone through a roller coaster of emotions in terms of not really knowing what was happening, to seeing things canceled, to seeing how our life has changed, and the fact that we're even doing this conference, which typically is in person, we're actually doing it entirely virtually this year, right? And then to the fact that we know that we're going to get through this, but we're not quite sure what does that look like, and we're not quite sure what the end point is. So many of us can probably relate to that. It's also not lost on me that this is probably not the first or the last of the video calls or video mediated interactions that you're going to have today. And for many of us, that is taking its toll as well. You know, one of the things that we know is that Zoom exhaustion or video chat exhaustion is very real, in large part because it is an unnatural way for us to communicate in terms of the human experience, right? When we are in person, we're able to pick up on cues that help us to make that connection more seamless. And without those cues, or without being able to see those more readily, our brains have to work overtime in order to actually fill in that gap. We're dealing with the fact that we all have different internet connections, right? And so the latency is something that we're also contending with, that our brains have to work overtime to fill in that latency gap as well. And then we layer on top of that that many of us are multitasking because we're trying to get as many things as we possibly can done at the same time, thinking that it makes us actually more productive, when we think that at the end of our days and our weeks, our productivity looks a little bit like what's on the left side of your screen, where we have these nice little chunks of things that we've accomplished. When the truth is that it's more like what's happening on the right side, where our attention is so subdivided that we're getting less things done. And the black lines, which represent those switching costs, we actually lose so much time switching from so many high level tasks and trying to do those things simultaneously. And then finally, we are dealing with something that I call IDD, or intention deficit disorder. Now, I know many of you are probably familiar with ADD or ADHD, but what I'm talking about in this particular instance is IDD, or intention deficit disorder. And this is essentially where we find ourselves perhaps moving through our lives and our work on autopilot and out of alignment with our core values, where we lack a clear understanding of what it is that we're looking to achieve in a particular day in a week. And we're sort of just going on autopilot. And let me know if this is connecting with you, where you wake up first thing in the morning, perhaps, and you grab your phone or your tablet, or you're looking at TV and you're responding to the text messages, you're scrolling through social media, you're looking at emails, you're doing all of these things, perhaps before you even roll out of bed, and you spend your entire day connected to your devices. Anyone relates? Let me know in the chat if this is something that you connect to, where you feel like you're spending so much time connected to your devices. You're spending so much time connected to your work. I see hands raised. I see a couple of amens and everything in the chat. Absolutely. So this is one of the challenges that we're actually dealing with. So with that being said, one of the reasons that we're here today is because mindfulness can be a powerful tool for helping us to really get back on track with that, right? To help us to create a little bit of spaciousness, to help us to slow down, to get clear about what is it that we're trying to do, right? Because we don't want to be in a space where we are being busy on autopilot and we're checking things off the list, but are you actually making an impact? Are you actually saving lives? Are you actually making a difference for the people that actually need us right now more than ever, in terms of achieving an opportunity to have access to lifelong wellness and wholeness? Are we actually being able to do those things? So I see you all in the chat. Keep the conversation going. I appreciate it and I'm loving it. So with that being said, we just talked about the challenge, right? With IDD, with the multitasking, with the Zoom exhaustion, and with the fact that we're spending so much time connected to our devices. So what is a possible solution that we can deal with? So as we talk about and begin to transition to a possible solution, let's take another poll and let's talk about, with this time, whether or not this is your first time with this is your first mindfulness experience. Just give me a yes or a no with the chat. So the poll is open. Again, if this is your first time, your first experience with mindfulness, let me know that. If it's not your first experience, then you can answer no to this question. But I just want to get a sense of where folks are, and as we move into the next exercise and we begin to talk about potential solutions. All right, so it looks like most folks have had an opportunity to respond to the poll. Again, we're asking, is this your first time, your first experience with mindfulness? And it looks like we have the vast majority of folks for whom this is not the first time. So that is good news, that we have lots of folks that are not new to mindfulness. And we have a number of folks, it looks like about 30% of us, who say that this is your first time. So we want to welcome you, and let's welcome the newbies, the newbies to mindfulness as well. So welcome. And it's so excited to have you to be a part of this experience. And for those of you who are not new, I want to welcome you back to mindfulness, and I want to welcome you particularly to this experience that we're going to have together. So thank you all for that. And so let's go ahead and I'll share the results out very briefly. You see the results that are on the screen before you, and then we'll go ahead and get moving as we move into the next part of our time together. So tell me, as we begin to think about this, so what is mindfulness? Let me know in the chat your thoughts about this. When you think about mindfulness, what do you think of as mindfulness? Let me know in the chat. I know that some of you had an opportunity to begin to share what mindfulness means to you at the outset, but go ahead and let me know. So Crystal says, being present in the moment. All right, Crystal, thank you for sharing that. That is absolutely a part of how we can think about it. Kathy says self-care. Deanna says self-care. Marquette says being present and aware, no judgments. Being mentally self-aware, being self-aware of your thoughts and actions, taking time to clear your mind so you can be present, being present and aware, acting on purpose, being able to connect with oneself. Absolutely. All of these are great ways to describe mindfulness. And one of the ways that I like to think about mindfulness is, and keep the and go ahead and keep your responses going, and I'll share with you how I think about mindfulness, and maybe we can come to an agreement about how we're going to be using it moving forward. So all the things that you said are definitely aspects of mindfulness. So when I think about mindfulness, I think about it as a quality of non-judgmental self-awareness, right? A non-judgmental self-awareness. And what I mean by that is it's the quality of being able to be aware of our thoughts, our emotions, our bodily sensations, and being able to hold those things, be aware of those things, to see those things without judging ourselves, without judging the experience. And when we're doing that, we are fully present. We're fully tuned in to the present moment. Something else that I want to share about this is that mindfulness is a natural state. It's a natural part of the human experience. I know that for many of us, we commonly associate it with a religious or a spiritual experience. Or maybe you've seen Oprah or the Dalai Lama talk about it and you're wondering if it's like the latest trend or fad. Well, it's been around for millennia. And it's something that was with us even in the caveman days where we had to be mindful. We had to be aware of the lions and the bears and the tigers because it was literally a matter of life and death, right? We had to be constantly aware and on the lookout. And so mindfulness is essentially that quality of being aware, being on the lookout, but being able to do it in a non-judgmental way. And there are so many different ways to practice mindfulness. There are many ways to practice mindfulness as there are people that are on the earth. And what I want to share with you is that you can adapt it in a way that actually works for you. And so what I'm going to share today is I'm going to share with you from my practice, and I'm inviting you to take what works for you, and I'm inviting you to leave the rest. So let's dive a little bit deeper into this. What does this actually mean? So for those of you who are first responders, you probably know this principle of walk, don't run. You probably understand the reason why this is the case. Now I know that for myself as a younger kid in grade school, I remember we had to practice these fire drills, and whenever we practiced a fire drill, the principal and the teacher would inevitably say, "Walk and don't run. Walk and don't run." And as a kid, I don't think we understood the words and we understood the direction, but I don't think we fully grasped the importance of that particular direction. All we knew is that we were excited to get out of class for the fire drill and to go outside. That's what we knew. And so invariably, some of us actually ran, even though the principal, the teacher said, walk and don't run. But I've come to have a different appreciation of this as an adult. And one of the reasons for that is something that I learned about how first responders are trained to a crisis when they're on the scene. And I know that maybe we have some first responders or healthcare workers on the chat that can maybe co-sign this or let us know if this is accurate. But there are two primary reasons that first responders are trained to walk and to not run when they're responding to a crisis. The first is probably obvious to many of us, is that if you're running, you risk perhaps hurting yourself by tripping and falling, or maybe hurting someone else. And if you do that, then you can't be of service to the people that you have been called to support in that particular instance for that particular crisis, right? The second reason has to do with the fact that when you're running, we know that your adrenaline levels spike. And when your adrenaline levels spike, your ability to be aware of everything that's happening in your environment that is compromised, right? So let's say you're a first responder, you're responding to a car accident, and you run to the first person that you see on the ground upon arriving to the scene. Well, what if you trip over a sharp object and cut yourself because you didn't see that because you were so amped up to get to this person that you saw on the ground? And what if there were two other people on the other side of the car that also needed your help, but you weren't able to see that or notice that because you ran to the first person immediately and your adrenaline level spiked so high that you weren't able to be fully aware of everything that was in your environment? So, why do I share this? I share this because one of the ways that we can think about mindfulness is an opportunity, a tool that we can actually use to be able to slow down so that we can walk and not run. And in this time of crisis, we can think of ourselves as first responders for our lives, first responders for our teams and our organizations, first responders for the people that we're serving that actually need our help. And how can we best be positioned to serve them? But one of the best things that we can do is to actually slow down, or in the case of this mantra, walk and don't run. And so, if there's nothing else that you take from today's session today, I want you to take away this idea of taking an opportunity to slow down. The other thing that I want to share with you, and I love this graphic that's on the screen that really shares a really succinct and profound way of thinking about what it means to be mindful versus mindless, or what it means to be responsive versus reactive. And it's this idea that, we're trying to make sure that we're being as fully present as possible so that we can see everything around us. As we see with the person here in this picture, they have all these thoughts that are going on in their mind, and they're not able to be fully present with their dog in the park with the sun shining in the trees, right? But then you look at the dog and you see that the dog is sort of trying to enjoy and be fully present with what is there, right? So let me know in the chat if you would rather be the dog or the person in this picture. How many folks want to be more like the dog? How many people want to be more like the person that's in this picture? Let me know in the chat. All right, so it seems like most folks, looks like all folks actually are saying they want to be more like the dog. Absolutely. We want to be in a place where we're actually be able to shift from mindless or attention deficit disorders I was talking about earlier, and shifting to being in a more mindful state. I love Angela, thank you for the emoji. We love the dog emoji. Thank you for that. So awesome. So keep those coming. And I'll share one final thing, and then we'll go ahead and get started with our exercise and get into our Q&A. So with that being said, something else that we want to be mindful of, and something that mindfulness really can be a powerful thing to help us to do, is to not only slow down, right? To walk as opposed to running, right? To be more like the dog as opposed to the person in that graphic that I shared. But it also helps us to slow down and to recognize and to be mindful of what is it that we actually have control over and what is it that we don't have control over, right? Because we spend so much time and energy focused on things that we have no control over, right? Things that we have no control over. And so we want to be able to pause and to reflect and to be able to take a step back and to focus on the things that we actually have control over, and to release the other things that we have no control over. When we can focus our time and attention squarely on the things that we have control over, the things that we can actually influence and that we can actually change, we are giving our best for ourselves, and we're giving our best to the people that are depending on us to support them and to serve them. And the other thing as well is we're being kind to ourselves, right? One of the ways that we tend to be unkind to each other is we expect each other to give something that we can't possibly give, right? And so one of the most kind things that you can do is to acknowledge that we're all doing the best we can with what we have right where we are. And that is all that we can expect of ourselves. And that's really all that we can expect of each other. And when we can get to that place of acceptance of that, then we are exhibiting a type of kindness for ourselves and for others. So excellent. So I want to go ahead and keep us moving into shift into the next exercise. And I want to invite us again, if you are in a comfortable and a safe place, and you're in a seated position, if you're able to take a comfortable upright and seated position, feet firmly planted on the ground, upright and comfortable with the shoulders relaxed, the neck relaxed. You might choose to close your eyes and place your hands palm up or palm down just above the knees. And if you would like to stand, you're certainly welcome to do this. If you would like to stand, if you prefer to do that. And of course, if you're lying down and you want to do that as well, perfectly okay for you to do this exercise lying down. And again, I invite you to close your eyes if that feels comfortable, that feels right for you. And to simply allow the body a moment to settle in this moment. And I shared at the outset, we've been talking about mindfulness, and what we're going to be doing is a mindfulness meditation. Meditation is a form of mindfulness in which we are intentionally focusing our attention on a particular anchor. For the purpose of this exercise and this meditation, we'll be using the breath as our anchor to keep us grounded in the present moment. So allow the body to settle, feet firmly planted on the ground, and perhaps start by just taking note of, or perhaps observing, any contact points between the body and anything that's supporting you in this moment. So if you're seated, you might start by noticing the contact points between the feet and maybe the ground or the carpet, or maybe even the shoes or socks that you might be wearing. Just noticing the contact points between the feet and whatever's supporting you in this moment. Noticing without judgment and taking an opportunity to, if you're seated, noticing supported by a chair or a stool or a sofa, whatever it is. And so just noticing the contact points between the body and whatever's supporting you in the seated position in this moment. Allowing the body to settle. And I invite you to expand your awareness in this moment to noticing the breath in the body as it naturally arises. This might be noticeable through the rise and the fall of the belly of the chest, perhaps through the in and out breath through the nostrils or the mouth. It may even be audible to you. Perhaps you can actually hear the breath moving in and out of the body. I invite you to take this moment to simply notice the breath as it naturally arises without making any changes or alterations or any adjustments or any judgments, just simply noticing the breath. If your mind wanders, that's perfectly okay. Just recognize that your mind might be wandering. You can accept that and just be kind to yourself and gently bring your attention back to the breath. And taking note that for some of us, this kind of grounding exercise might cause us to be sleepy or drowsy, and that's perfectly okay. It's an opportunity to simply accept that that perhaps is what the body needs right now. So if you need to rest in this moment, give yourself the gift of that rest. Again, noticing the breath and the body. as it flows in and out of the body, just bringing our attention to that, noticing it non-judgmentally without making any adjustments or changes. If your mind wanders, perfectly okay. The mind wandering is actually a natural part of the human experience. We can acknowledge it and simply bring the attention back to the breath. Again, just focusing on the in and out breath as the breath moves in and out of the body. You get distracted or you get wrapped up in the story, perfectly okay. We can acknowledge it and gently bring ourselves back to our anchor, simply noticing the breath in the body. Allow the body to settle, to sustain your focus on the breath, bringing your attention back to the breath if it wanders. And in the next few moments, I invite you to release the focus on the breath and simply allow the body to settle, to relax. Allow the body a moment to unwind, allow the mind a moment to perhaps wander just for a few moments. And at the sound of the chime, I invite you to, if you chose to close your eyes, to open your eyes. Of course, if you need a few more moments for yourself, feel free to take as much time as you need. Again, if you chose to close your eyes, you can open those when you're ready. And if you need a few more moments, feel free to take a few more moments on your own. And I invite you, as you are shifting your attention to back to our discussion together and our experience, is to consider the prompts that are on the screen. I would love for us to be able to engage in a conversation about what we've experienced. And of course, if you have questions, happy to answer those questions. So if you have questions, you can use the Q&A feature you should see that at the bottom of your screen. If you're using a desktop, there should be an option for Q&A, an option to submit your question. And if you have a response to one of the prompts that's on the screen, I would love for you to enter that into the chat. And I see that we have a few thoughts and comments that are coming in already, so I'll take a look at those. So again, if you have questions, put those in the Q&A section, and we'll be able to get to those and be able to see those all in one place. And then if you have a question, if you have a comment or response to one of the prompts that's on the screen, please go ahead and share that. And I'll just walk through these really briefly. So I would love to hear from you what worked for you in terms of this mindfulness meditation experience. If there was something that you found challenging, what did you find challenging? Or perhaps you want to share something that you learned that you want to take with you coming out of today's session. And so I will share just a few of the comments that have come in. I see that there was one person who shared that if they keep this up, they might go to sleep. And so absolutely. So this type of experience, it's not uncommon that people feel drowsy or feel sleepy. Often that is an indication that your body's just tired. And we have to be really good at listening to our bodies. And mindfulness is an opportunity for us to slow down, to stop running, to listen to our bodies, and to give ourselves what we actually need. So it's perfectly okay if you feel drowsy and you fall asleep during a meditation or mindfulness experience. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Give your body what it needs. Yeah, so Angela says, I find it very hard to quiet my mind. Yeah, that is a very big challenge that many of us face. And one of the things that I would offer is that, the purpose of mindfulness, specifically mindfulness meditation, isn't necessarily for us to quiet the mind, right? Our brain is always thinking, right? We're wired to be always constantly thinking and on the lookout for new and different. It's part of how we survive. It's part of our survival instinct. But rather, we want to be able to get in a place where we notice those things, but we aren't always reacting, right? So to be able to notice and to not react, and to be able to notice and to respond as opposed to react. And so, Angela, I hope that's helpful as we think about this, that our goal really isn't to stop thinking, right? That's impossible for us to do. And meditation really isn't a tool to help us to do that, but rather it's a tool to help us to perhaps navigate what's going on in our minds without being reactive. We're actually able to think through and take a responsive or mindful approach to what's coming up for us. So thank you for sharing that, Angela. So Victoria says she appreciated the kindness that I showed in allowing us to relax. You're very welcome, Victoria, and I appreciate your kindness and showing up for yourself and for all of us here. So I appreciate that comment. Thank you for that. So Kathy says the space I'm in is my living room. The sun was shining directly on me. It felt amazing and so peaceful. Awesome, Kathy. So glad you had a wonderful experience. Yes, please spread some of that sunshine around for us. So I'm sure many of us would actually appreciate that. So Crystal says I had outside distractions, coworkers talking and radio, so I often had to redirect my mind and was not able to fully relax. So Crystal, that is very common. One of the things with mindfulness is that formal experiences like this, sometimes it's not really a real good indication or reflection of the real world that we live in. The fact of the matter is that we live in a really busy and distracting world. And that even though you weren't able to fully relax, Crystal, the fact that you were able to do the practice and hopefully were able to get something from it is a good indication, right? And so if you continue to practice it, then you will, like with anything, you'll get better at it, and you'll be able to more effectively engage in a relaxing experience, notwithstanding the distractions all around you. So again, mindfulness isn't about sort of stopping the world from happening. It's about being aware and being responsive to that as opposed to being reactive. So Crystal, thank you so much for sharing that experience with you. So Robin says, had a hard time focusing on the breath. I was so relaxed, I dozed off a couple times. That's perfectly okay, Robin. That is perfectly okay. So we appreciate you sharing that. To Andrea says she found it challenging not to hold my breath. Absolutely. So I see that there are lots of other things that are coming. Please keep those there. Please keep those coming in. I want to share a few things because I believe we are at time. And so I want to honor the time that you all have shared with me. And I want to just acknowledge that I appreciate all of you being here today. And I want to just share a few more things. So remember, you have the workbook, mindfultechie.com/free. Just that's my gift to you for being here, for showing up for yourself and being a part of this. Again, a practical way for you to implement what we shared in terms of work-life and tech-life balance into your life. You have the planning tool as well. And so if you want to go to mindfultechie.com/planner, and you're interested in that for a deeper dive and accountability system, that's something that is there for you. And then of course, I would love to stay connected, love to hear from you. And so my contact information is on the screen. I would love to connect with you and to hear from you. I want to thank everyone for participating. I don't think that we have I don't see any questions that are in the Q&A box, but I want to just thank everyone for being a part of this experience. I hope that you found something beneficial and valuable that you've taken away from it. I don't know if the digital conventions team has anything they want to add before we close out, but I see the comments that are coming in, and just want to thank folks. Yes, thank you. Right back at you. You are very welcome. You're very welcome. Absolutely. So right back at you. And so I will turn it back over to the conference team, and we'll close things out. So thank you all for being a part of this experience, and look forward to connecting with you